Hello, welcome. I'm Jonathan from your Y. Thanks for being with us today. How lucky am I that I get these opportunities to speak to leaders in their field? And I'm very excited about our guest today. We're going to be talking about baseball and much more. Today, I'm fortunate to introduce to you one of the leading voices in sports today, Fox Sports MLB studio analyst, and also MLB veteran of 14 years, our very own Mark Sweeney. Mark, welcome.
Jonathan, thank you for having me on. This is a pleasure.
Thanks for being with us. We have a lot to talk about. First off, how exciting is this season so far?
Oh,
Just to
it's
see the conversation that we're on a national stage in terms of how the Padres are being perceived. So, what is going on? How did we get there? What do you think about this?
well, I think it's so exciting because we finally have stars again in San Diego. People that whether you've followed the game for over 80 years in your whole life, to my son who's 9 years old, little leaguers that be able to wear the Padre jersey with pride. Also have Tatis and Machado and Eric Hosmer, Yu Darvish, so many things. So it's exciting. Everywhere I go, people want to ask questions about the Padres, and I would say this is my 10th year. This is probably the second year, maybe third year, where it definitely has a lot of the conversation. But to your point, Jonathan, the best part of the San Diego Padres is that people are talking about our city, our team, throughout the country. It's just not centralized here in San Diego.
So we've been trending pretty strong. I think this past weekend we had the best record in baseball, leading the NL. Very exciting. I went on a couple days ago, MLB Power Rankings. We had bumped up to number one. Oh my God! I don't think we've ever had this kind of success as a ball club. It's just amazing. What's your sense of the chemistry in the clubhouse? New manager.
Yeah, I think the chemistry really started last year with the playoff run, the exceptional finish to the wild card series against the St. Louis Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals have knocked us out of the playoffs many times. So that was another step in the right direction. And then AJ Preller and his staff acquiring Yu Darvish and Blake Snell and going out and getting Joe Musgrove, who threw the no hitter. So many things have started to snowball. Their chemistry is great. The only drawback for me being a broadcaster, we're not on the field. We don't have that connection like we used to have with a lot of these players, that we would have simple conversations. Sometimes, Jonathan, as you know, it's not the conversations about baseball. It's about what their lives are, what where they're from. I've never met Blake Snell. I've never met Yu Darvish. Those simple things that we would typically do in a spring training haven't happened. But I'm on the outside. I'm trying to generate all of that interest and express to the fans how great this team is. They haven't played their best baseball yet. And to your point, they're right there at the top. They're battling Los Angeles Dodgers, also the surprising San Francisco Giants. But this is a team with expectations that we said at the beginning of the year. Last year it was hope. Now there's expectations for not only go to the playoffs, but go very deep in the playoffs, if not the World Series.
You actually raised an interesting point. I think because of your public persona as an MLB analyst and Fox Sports, I just assume you have conversations and connections with all the players. So how do you get that pulse of what's going on with the players? Does that come from the manager, or what's your secrets to getting that information?
It's interesting because we do a lot of Zoom meetings, do a lot of Zoom calls, and we hear basically what they're expressing. There's not a personal touch to it that I think makes it and resonates with me about how special baseball is, because it's every day. You don't have those days off where you're not talking to the players. We missed that interaction that we would have in a dugout before batting practice. When they are not intense, they're not worried about timing aspects. You can just have a normal conversation. That's not done anymore. So we have to dive in deep. We have to ask all kinds of people that are around them. Simple text messages here and there, but a lot of the information's not there. So we have to almost be vanilla in our information
Mm.
and talk about the beauty of the game. Talk about the emotional side of how challenging it is going from 60 games, Jonathan, to 162. That is a daunting thing for a lot of guys, and a lot of people know Jake Cronenworth. He's never played a full season. Last year was his first year. He's never played in front of a crowd that gives you that type of emotion. So there's all kinds of different things that we would like to incorporate. We like to dive into. I think it's fascinating the pressures that these guys go through, having to meet those pressures, but also have fun doing it because you're almost a kid again. You get to play a sport that you absolutely love. And these guys do have fun. And that's the reason why I think Fernando Tatis is already praised for his energy and what he brings and his love. But there's a lot of other guys on the roster that we want to make sure that we connect with the fans and the guys. So sometimes that's challenging, but we also know we see the emotion that they let out on the baseball field.
It is so wonderful that fans are able to be back at the ballpark. I've had the chance to go down and see a couple games, but even the opportunity to view it on TV, there is so much energy from this team. And
Yeah.
they're a young team, as you were noting. People are coming into playing a full season. One of the things that I want to give you an opportunity to speak to is Tatis. Uh, Out once, actually twice this season, and right now, wondering about his body. I mean, he just throws himself into the game. What's your thoughts? Are we going to see him back soon? It sounds like it might be day to day. What do you know?
Yeah, it's usually day to day when you have one of those intercostal muscles or however they're presenting it. That's a common injury in the game of baseball, and sometimes it's very hard to determine how long that's going to be because there's a lot of people that are out for 2 or 3 weeks. It sounds to me like Jace Tingler thought that they got it before it got really dangerous because I really believe this is a different team, Jonathan, when Fernando Tatis Jr. is out there. His energy is so infectious. I've said this to many other broadcasters that come in and ask us the same question. And I've always said this, and this is all with all due respect to Manny Machado. I think Fernando gives Manny Machado more energy than the reverse. I think Tatis Jr. puts more pressure on Manny Machado to be that much better. And it's a friendly competition, but I do believe that's how good the youngster is. Fernando Tatis Jr. can do everything. We've all seen the home runs, the defensive plays, even though he struggled throwing this year. The defensive plays are marvelous. He has an energy about him, and he does it with a smile and a flair and a likability. That to me is very important. When he does his thing, it seems like Manny steps his game up. And this is a guy that has a great resume, obviously. And those two have a very good tandem. I would say it's probably the best left side of an infield in the game of baseball. So that's what he does. That's exactly what he brings. And plus, man, my 9-year-old absolutely loves Fernando Tatis Jr. So that to me is something that's extra special.
Well, I know his jersey is proliferated throughout the stadium. You see it around the city. I mean, he's really gained a particular following. You spoke to something in terms of those fielding errors. As 14 years in the major leagues, is that something that is just repetition and working on compared to some of the other elements of the game? Does that just get refined over time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first year we saw Fernando Tatis Jr., he made some young mistakes. Last year in the truncated season, he was spectacular, won the defensive award. So we've seen him at his best for a period of time. This year, it's been a lot of his throwing. It's been the casual throws, meaning it's a routine ground ball, and he's throwing. It's not arms. It's not arm strength. It has everything to do with accuracy. And sometimes people don't realize we always talk about slumps as a hitter. You can get in a slump defensively. It can get in your head. And that's the youthful mistakes that I think Fernando Tatis Jr. makes. But that being said, there's a lot to learn. I think we always hear this in sports, which is really an aspect that I think is important. You have a serious high ceiling for Fernando Tatis Jr. I think defensively he has to be much better, and he will get better because he has a work ethic that is second to none. You see, I go to the field early every day, and he's taking ground balls. He's making his throws. I think he has an athletic ability that sometimes gets too fast, and the good ones get to slow the game down and be able to do that. I think that's something that he's going to have to learn, and basically stay on the field because of that. I think that's the maturing in the game is what you hear. Slowing the game down takes experience, and sometimes you want to fast forward that, and that's hard to do.
Great point, great perspective. Joe Musgrove, local kid. I hear about all the things that he's doing for this ball club. Tell me a little bit about him.
What a story. Local kid gets the first no-hitter. We waited a long time for that no-hitter. So many times we've got into the seventh inning and there's no hits, and you're like, this is it. I'll tell a quick story. They were on the road, obviously, in Texas when he got the no-hitter. And I called home, and I've already referenced my 9-year-old. I called home and I said, hey, Gavin, turn the TV on, buddy, if you're not watching the game. Something special could happen right here. And he got to witness that, which a lot of us did. Joe Musgrove, first off, is an unselfish, hardworking guy that is a local kid that couldn't wait to be in a Padre uniform. That, to me, is a great story because we have the ability to be a city, but also that town feeling, that comfort that it's family driven and so many great things. So for Joe Musgrove to have that first moment to change so many people's lives, including mine, I got to witness something that was an event that you just absolutely love. And for him to have the first no-hitter in Padre history, the first no-hitter in 2021, that's something that'll never be taken away from all of us, and we'll always remember where we were for that first time. But Joe is first class. He's always unselfishly doing a lot of things that are driven to make this team a championship club.
Wow. So what is going on? I mean, 9 no-hitters in Major League so far. Is it, there's talk, is it the baseball? Is it the shift? What's going on?
There's a lot of factors in that, and I believe we are going to set records. We're setting a lot of records with strikeouts. The velocity is up in the game. The strikeouts are up in the game. The hits are down. It has a lot to do with the defensive shifts, to your point. It has a lot to do with the ball being manipulated. To me, I don't know why the ball has been manipulated. Some of those things I get frustrated at. Also, I realize back in the day, getting a no-hitter meant a lot. So I really don't want to dilute that aspect, and hopefully it's not. But I believe that these pitchers know how to throw harder. They can manipulate the baseball. They can move 95 to 98 miles an hour, which before, back in the day, you didn't see a lot of guys that could do that.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. The one thing that you got to worry about with the no hitters, they're trying to manipulate so many different rules. I just wish it got back to the old school way of going out there and performing. Back in the day, Jonathan, it was embarrassing to strike out, and there was big power hitters in the middle of the lineup that it didn't matter if they struck out, but it was frowned upon for utility guys that were going up there, swing and miss. So to me, that's a frustrating aspect that I think will change. And I think some teams are going to go to that contact hitter because they're going to have to. They're going to have to integrate a different philosophy. But that might take some time. But we're seeing a lot of no-hitters because of all of those factors.
So do you think some of that will necessitate rule changes?
I do. And the rule changes really should go back to... I don't mind the defensive shifts. It also goes back to philosophy, too. We all know what Tony Gwynn did to a baseball. He hit the ball to all fields. There's a want to be able to do that. Now, so much of this is driven by salary, right? Strikeouts for pitchers, home runs for hitters. But that salary needs to be changed in a sense that I think if you drive salary towards the hitters that do give up give the batting average that's over 300, like Tony Gwynn did in his sleep, I think that'll change the philosophy. I also think the minor leagues need to adapt to some hitters saying, we want you to hit the ball the other way. We want you to defense the shift. I don't think it's about bunting, which a lot of people have conversations with. I want somebody that knows how to hit, be able to hit, and it's not necessarily like Tony Gwynn. You just have to have the philosophy of I can get hits no matter if they shift to the right side. The location that these pitchers throw all the time is not necessarily pitched to defensive shift. It's about velocity and throw as hard as I can. So they make a lot of mistakes. You just have to be a better hitter, in my opinion, to be able to go the other way when you have to.
So in a moment, I want to hit some other topics. Anything we should look for as the season goes on? Any particular trends, any concerns? It's a long
Yeah,
season.
the one trend I think is going to happen, and we've seen it, and it's been frustrating on my end, but you understand it coming from that 60 game season last year, is its pitch counts, its innings limits. We're hearing a lot of that, which is very scary when it comes down to where is this going to what's going to happen to the starting rotation. I think they will be extended. I think if someone goes over 100 pitches now, they back off the next start. They make sure that they're right around maybe 85, 90 pitches. I think that trend will change. We have to be conscious of it because we're constantly talking about pitch counts. We're talking about stressful innings. I think they have to be very careful because I just read an article this morning. There's so many injuries throughout baseball, and we're talking about injuries to the star pitchers, the star players. Mike Trout out until August. You see Tatis Jr. now is dealing with his second injury of the year. That's a concern for me, and I think Major League Baseball has to do a better job of keeping their stars under wraps and they're playing, because that's how this game gets to be so good, is you're seeing these stars on the field and not in the training room.
I want to shift our conversation for a few moments and talk about some other things, because part of Be Well is to look at living life mindfully and in balance and vibrant. And I want to touch on Naomi Osaka, the -- 2 in the world woman tennis player, who has gotten some attention recently and then pulled out of the French Open. Really, and you're someone in the media, I wonder how you perceive and what your take is on that she speaks to some of her challenges.
I think there's so many different challenges that we don't, sometimes we minimize or we put to the side. There is, I've always said this to a lot of my closest friends. I marveled at how the stars of the game, the elite players, played at a time where they would set a bar so high. Why I say that is that their mentality is always, how do I exceed that the next year? And sometimes that is very difficult to do. In baseball, we have career years, and you set a bar. To meet those sometimes is challenging. Off the field aspects are challenging as well. The hard thing, Jonathan, is that when you're playing, you realize you're just trying to succeed. You're trying to be the best version of yourself. But sometimes there's mental challenges. Sometimes there's aspects off the field that you're challenged with. Meeting those expectations and going and playing a baseball game for 3-4 hours sometimes is very difficult. Challenges of the mental side of doing it every single day is challenging. For me, I had former teammates that had their challenges going to the field. I wanted to be there for them. I wanted to have communication for them. Sometimes you feel like you're in a bubble by yourself, but you had 24 other guys in the locker room that you were relying on. And that can be a daunting task. Being a friend, being there to have communication with the people that have the challenges off the field, and not be robotic. Be your best version of yourself that night, but also be there for everyone else. And that's the beauty of sports, but also the challenging aspects that are real life stuff. Sometimes you get out there and you're in the public eye, and I think a lot of people think that everything is smooth and dandy because you have a bigger paycheck. It really isn't that. Your challenges are to exceed expectations that are put on you, and that can be daunting at times.
I appreciate the perspective. Lately, we've been much more aware of fan behavior and seemingly this blurring in the lines. You used to root for your team, but not necessarily what's going on in sports. When I hear about a bottle being thrown at a player in basketball, someone injured and popcorn being dumped on them, and some really outrageous behavior. And so I just wonder what your take is on what's going on in this way.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's disappointing that people feel like just because they buy a ticket, they can do or say anything. The challenges have always been verbal for us. When you get into the aspect of people throwing stuff at you, that gets very dangerous. For example, I remember one time we were playing at Dodger Stadium. This was my rookie year, and they gave out baseballs for the giveaway, and the umpire made a bad call, and we were on the field, so the balls start getting launched from the third deck. To me, that is dangerous. We ran off the field. Luckily, I was in the first base, and I got to the first base dugout in time. But my good friend was playing right field, and there's balls getting launched, and you're seeing him come down. Luckily, he did not get hit. To me, that has to be changed. You're seeing so many different aspects of it. The security, especially at Petco Park, is fabulous. They do a great job at it, but sometimes you let your guard down because you feel like it's a normal aspect of it, that you're there, you're watching a game, you're broadcasting a game. There's aspects that come into it that are very difficult.
Is it a commentary, you think, on where we are as a society, where, as you said, you buy a ticket and you feel entitled? Or are we just hearing more about sensational experiences?
I think so. I'm sorry for my dogs here. If you guys can hear it, I'm sorry. The aspect of just going out there and performing, and then seeing people run on the field because I think it's fun and joking and they're having a good time. There's a balance to it, and baseball brings a purity that I think should be withheld, and stood up as an example. The only thing you can do as players is go out there and perform, but also be ready and be aware of your surroundings. More and more to this day, it is something that you have to keep in mind because there's craziness. There's people that want to get on social media, and that's their way of being able to showcase that. Just the reality of it and the awareness should be very important.
So I want to talk about sports and wellness. I know your family participates in a number of sports, baseball, volleyball, etc., at pretty high levels. And I know I was surprised. I shouldn't have been surprised, but when I was looking into your background a little bit, that you weren't only baseball, but you also were the high school quarterback. Got the state championship leading the way, had a scholarship to college in baseball and in football. So you appreciate a range of sports. And I just wonder what you might say about just the role that sports plays in one's wellness.
Yeah, it's interesting. And thank you for sharing that. Raising children in this sports society sometimes is very challenging because of the push towards 9, 10, 11 years old, making a choice on one sport. I think the wellness becomes being able to adapt your body, your mind to so many different aspects that sports bring. My daughters started in soccer. They ended up in beach volleyball. They played indoor volleyball. I think the want to be able to miss a sport is very important mentally. I had that when I was growing up. I played 3 different sports. I was encouraged to perform. But honestly, Jonathon, I did that because I wanted to be around friendships. I want to drive those friendships to be the best I could possibly be, but also enjoy the sport that I was in because of my best friend was playing it, or I got to meet so many different people. And it kept on snowballing. I think a surprise to a lot of people is I went there, as you said, to University of Maine to play football because that was my first love. I grew to love baseball when I was in college. And nowadays, we're sitting in a hotbed of talent. So many kids are pushed towards 12 years old to make a decision on one sport that they might grow to not like. I say that because I encourage a lot of people to incorporate developing your son or daughter into an athlete, mentally and physically. And I think it's great to do different things. If you side with one sport and it has to be that way, whether it's tennis, whether it's golf, any of those sports that you have to, I get it because the passion is definitely there for some kids. But don't push them towards that. If you're pushing anything, push encouraging to develop relationships, develop those friendships, and feel like if I develop somebody that loves 2 sports, they're going to miss the other one while they're playing the one that they're in right now. I remember that. It was a motivational factor for me. And sometimes I think a lot of parents say, well, it's going to be hard to catch up to the talent. I played at the highest level. I caught up. I might not have been the maximized best player I've ever been, but I felt I did. I felt like I was there more mentally, but also more importantly, I developed great friendships. And to this day, that's what's my greatest accomplishment is being able to play at the highest level, but also be around people that I absolutely love and I learn aspects of life from. To me, that's the greatest accomplishment going that many levels. It's not about the achievements, it's not about the awards. Sometimes a lot of people magnify the ring on the finger. It has everything to do with I'm great friends with Trevor Hoffman, and it's not because he was a Hall of Famer. It's because he was a great guy that I had a lot of great talks with, dinners. I still to this day enjoy our time, not because he was a Hall of Famer and he closed out the last inning all the time and we heard hell's bells. He's just a great human being. And to me, that's what sports really drives, in my opinion.
So I know our time is running short, but I'd be remiss in not giving you an opportunity to kind of speak to that backdrop that you have there and the
Well, thank you.
significance of it.
Well, this is interesting. So you see number 50, it's Jimmy Reese. I don't know if you see the name, but Jimmy Reese, to me, is the reason why all the other jerseys are there. Jimmy Reese was 93 when he passed away. It was my first year in big league camp with the Angels. I worship that time because if anyone that's listening has ever felt that there was a person in their life that they had to meet, Jimmy Reese was that for me. His passion for baseball was unprecedented. Started as a bat boy, became a baseball player, minor leagues, major leagues. He was the roommate of Babe Ruth. So many great stories, but his passion led me to accentuate what I had to do. And the rest of the jerseys are obviously 51. I just talked about and Trevor Hoffman. And my two jerseys, the World Series in 1998 that I have all the way to my left. That was a World Series jersey that I'll never forget. It was a magic carpet ride that ended in a sweep of the Yankees. And then that individual moment, passing Manny Mota in a Giants uniform, pinch hitting. I still, in the middle, underneath that number, it's a fax, believe it or not. It's a fax from Manny Mota congratulating me. And to me, he was the staple of it. Lenny Harris leads the league in pinch hits. I am in second, but I passed, in my opinion, the greatest pinch hitter that set a tone for what it was.
Oh, fantastic. Before we go, last thing for you, Mark, if you will, Major League Beginnings. Tell us all a little bit about that.
Well, thank you for asking me. It's a podcast and it's a passion of mine, and also Barry Axelrod, my agent. It's an amazing podcast that tells stories about their firsts, and it's about the call-ups of Hall of Famers, special people. We're in our second season, and we have over 50 episodes. Just go on majorleaguebeginnings.com, check it out, and have a listen. It's a great listen. It's very evergreen, so it's not going to go away. So thank you for asking that. It's just a passion of mine, and I know I've been around a lot of great people, and their great stories are resonating.
Mark, thank you so much for being with us and offering your perspective and your stories to the Y and our membership, as well as the public, and for all that you do in offering us that voice of perspective on Fox News. We'll continue to watch and listen to you as the season goes on. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, Jonathon, thank you very much. Our friendship means the most to me, and thank you very much. And I wish everyone the best. And go Padres. Hopefully a World Series championship in the near future.
There we go. But thanks, Mark. You have a great day. We'll see you soon.
You too, buddy.
Bye-bye.